Well, welcome back again this week. Agenda 21. It's something that has come to the attention of many people around our country, and as a result, many local citizens have done what they can to get rid of Agenda 21 out of their communities through the ICLEI organization that their council or commission belongs to. Now, because of this knowledge about Agenda 21, the forces that mean to rule us through this process have started to change the names. They've started to change the name of ICLEI, for instance. They've started to change the name of Agenda 21 itself. I have in my hand, and I'll tell you how you can get a copy for yourself, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And basically it's saying that, well, we need to hurry this process along. We've got to get things done by 2016, 2020, and most assuredly by 2030. In other words, it's not an Agenda 21, the 21st century anymore. It's actually over the next couple of decades. And so in here, you start to read what they have to say about what they're trying to do. And they'll say things that are very contradictory, that cannot exist side by side. And it's full of glittering generalities about eliminating poverty and sustaining the world and on and on and on. And if you extend the lines on these things, it means total government control. Now, check your calendar. If you're watching this week, check your calendar to see what date it is, because the first part in the declaration, the introduction, number 1, says this: "We, the heads of state and government and high representatives, meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York from 25 to 27 September 2015, as the organization celebrates its 70th anniversary, have decided today on new global sustainable development goals." Now, unless I'm mistaken, that's a month away. So they've got this all ready to go. All they're going to do is get together for wine, womeners, and song, and then issue this. Most of these people just do what they're told as heads of state, and they just pass on what their staff puts in their hand. And this is one of those cases. We are committed to achieving sustainable development in its 3 dimensions: economic, social, and environmental, in a balanced and integrated manner. So they want sustainable development in economics. Now figure that one out. If they control the situation so much they can control the economy, that is no longer freedom. That is no longer free enterprise. Social. In other words, they want to change society. And anybody's government is based on the society that put it together. If that society changes, then the government changes. And so Karl Marx knew, as I've said before on these broadcasts, he always called for a social revolution. He knew that society had to change in order to make communism, socialism successful. And then they talk about the environment. But a couple of other things that are in here, just just to fill you in. It says, it is guided by its purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. It is grounded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that sort of thing. So these declarations of human rights, as I pointed out in my book, International Merger by Foreign Entanglements, on page, for those of you who have a copy, on page 112, it says in these areas where they're giving these rights, in other words, our system is based on the idea that God gave us our rights. Therefore, nobody can legitimately take them away from us, particularly government. The UN and the way it's set up through its charter and its Universal Declaration says we give you the rights. We guarantee you these rights. And they say things like this. Freedom to manifest, everybody has the right, this is Article 18, by the way, of the Universal Declaration from the UN. Everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. But then it asserts this: freedom to manifest one's religion or beliefs may be subject only to such limitations as are prescribed by law and are necessary. So the Bill of Rights of Congress says that Congress shall pass no law. These are your rights. They come from God. Congress may not interfere, period. The United Nations says, yes, you have these rights, but we can regulate them, basically is what they're saying. And so it's the same with all of this. They talk about freedom, they talk about independence, they talk about equality and all the rest of it, as long as they are in control. And so there's a number of things in here. A lot of it's very, very interesting, but I don't want to bog us down too much. It says that economic growth is essential for prosperity. Duh. This will only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. This can only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. Ladies and gentlemen, this in a nutshell is socialism. That's what it is, pure and simple when you read these things. Again, it's done in such a way that they're glittering generalities, but when you think them through, you realize, oh my goodness, they really mean to control everything. In Article 29, they say, we recognize the positive contribution of migrants for inclusive growth and sustainable development. Now, what is migration? What has migrants got to do with sustainable development? You see, if you start analyzing these sentences, they make absolutely no sense. But basically what they're saying here in the following paragraph is, we support migration for a particular purpose, and that's to break down the societies all across the world. If you've got people coming and going as they wish, then society in every country breaks down, and it all becomes one huge world society controlled out of the UN. There's more. It says we need to have control of the oceans, seas, freshwater resources, forests, mountains, dry lands, in order to control dust storms and land degradation and drought. So now I guess they're becoming God. If they can control drought, you know, nobody's ever been able to do that yet. So when you start analyzing these things, they lay before themselves impossible tasks. But they promise these tasks to some sort of solution if you just give them more control and more control over your forests and your lands and the oceans and everything else. And yet they say things like this. We reaffirm in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations the need to respect the territorial integrity and political independence of states. Well, you can't do that if you've got to control the oceans and the rivers and the forests and everything else. You lose your independence and you lose the political integrity if you allow migration, right? If they say we need migration, open-ended, all over the world, that means that ultimately you're going to lose the political independence of your country. It's that simple. So there's a lot of contradictory things in here, but it's a clue of where they're going. And I'll end up on this one. The scale and ambition of the new agenda requires a revitalized global partnership. A revitalized global partnership. You know all these trade partnerships that they're talking about? This is what it's all about. That's what they want, is a partnership under the United Nations. And if you go to these treaties and agreements, you'll find that that's the case when you start to look at any agreement we've made since the end of World War II. Now, this is how you get a copy for yourself. And it's sustainabledevelopment.un.org/post-2015/transforming our world. And this is all one long URL to link to where you can pick up a copy of this and download it on your own printer. And I'm leaving it up here so that you can write it down. This is a very important document. When you start to really analyze what they've got in this thing, it's a total dictatorship over all of us, all of our lives, our governments, everything. If they can control the economy, what does that do to your business? If they can control the farmland and everything else in the name of feeding the world, to eliminate poverty, And about every fourth or fifth paragraph in this thing says we want to eliminate poverty. Well, it's an impossible task. For those of you who are Christians, you know that Jesus Christ told us the poor we will always have with us. And it's true. We will always have poor. It's a relative thing, first of all. And so these things are just simply glittering generalities to get people to believe that if we just hand everything over to the United Nations and Agenda 21, we'll be fine. Until next week, we'll see you then.